What's going on, everyone? I'm Mike, and this is To Be Continued With. And today, we're going to break down the new hit series from Marvel and Disney titled Moon Knight. With those that are new to the channel, please hit subscribe and the bell for notifications because we're going to break down each episode of this great series. And today, we're going to cue up our intro and dive right into Moon Knight, Episode 1. We start things off with our ominous intro of Ethan Hawke's character, Arthur Harrow's. And he's going through his morning routine right before he goes for his morning walk with shards of glass filled inside of his shoes. Don't ask, just watch the series, because from there, the Marvel logo comes to play, and we meet our lead character who is just waking up from the night before. He does seem a bit thrown off, but after he checks the homemade shackles that connect his leg to the bed frame, he walks across some sand that's on the floor just so he can take some tape off that's been placed on the door. Then, he's ready to start his mundane and awkward day. Filled with an abundance of ancient Egyptian knowledge, Oscar Isaac makes his way to the museum where his character Stephen works. Now we actually find out how knowledgeable he is because he schools a little girl with some tales of ancient Egypt and their culture. He then confirms a date that he doesn't even remember making with one of the cute tour guides that works at the museum. We basically find out that he's your average Joe who works at the museum gift shop and is constantly getting belittled by his boss Donna. Basically, he's a meek, mild-mannered man who shares his life with his one true friend, a one-fin goldfish named Gus. We see that Stephen ends up spending a lot of his time at night reading, playing with a Rubik's Cube, and listening to some self-help recordings on how to keep focused, only to wake up face down on a mountaintop field with a broken jaw. Now, just like us, the viewers, Stephen is wondering why he's on a mountaintop in the middle of the day. Why is he being gunned down by two mystery men? And more importantly, why is he hearing a voice in his head asking him to give control back to Mark? From there, he also finds an ancient Egyptian artifact inside his jacket pocket, so he makes a run into a nearby town where he sees the townfolk listening to Arthur Harrow, who I mentioned before is being played by Ethan Hawke, more like a cult leader with a Scales of Justice tattoo on his forearm, and he's ready to judge some of those folks that are in the crowd. From there, Harrow is informed that someone escaped with the scarab, and he leads them out. He catches Stephen and calls him the mercenary. From there, he asks for the artifact back, which Stephen attempts to do so, but the voice that he heard in his head before takes control of his body and does not allow him to give it back. What happens next is something that really does grab your attention, because when a group of Harrow's men surround Stephen, he begins to experience some type of blackout, only to break out of it and find that the men that were trying to overpower him are now beaten down and bloodied on the floor. He also hears that voice again saying the idiot is back. Now, as a comic fan familiar with the character, I know that that voice is Khonshu, who's speaking to him, and it's done in a way that's very similar to the way Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom have their back and forth banter. Stephen ends up then jumping into a cupcake delivery truck and is chased by the remaining henchmen. And what happens next is another set of blackouts, because every time Stephen is in some serious danger, he snaps back with the situation being taken care of, with him coming out on top, also him having no knowledge of how he did so. Now keep in mind that in the comics, Moon Knight is actually Mark Spector, a mercenary and a boxer, while Stephen is one of his multiple personalities. And during this particular episode, it seems that Khonshu is determined for Mark to take over so that whatever is happening can be done efficiently and correctly, which is why he keeps abusing Stephen and calling him an idiot. Think about it like this. Think about when Brad Pitt and Edward Norton were in Fight Club, but they simply didn't know what the other one was doing and really didn't have any knowledge or interaction with the other personality. Now, Stephen ends up escaping the henchmen, only to wake up chained again in his flat back in London. He chalks everything up to it just being a simple dream. At this moment, we get why the episode is titled The Goldfish Problem, because when Stephen wakes up, he notices that his Nemo stunt double Gus now has two fins. Confused? So is Stephen. He's bugging out at the pet store owner where he originally bought Gus from. He's also now thrown off by what time it is, since he thinks that it's morning, when he just woke up. But in reality, it's almost 7 o'clock, and you gotta remember that he has a date that he has to get ready for. He's dressed up, he's waiting for his date, so he decides to give her a call since he's running a little bit late, only to get chewed out for calling her and her stating that he stood her up 2 days ago for their original date. It sinks in that what he dreamt was kind of real, or could have been real, since he's at his wit's end over what's happening to him. Is it a dream? Is it real? More importantly, what the hell does it mean? Now back home, he starts moping around and he ends up finding an old flip phone and a set of keys that are hidden in a wall panel. He's about to call someone named Layla, who's called that phone about 50 times, but she ends up calling him and asks him where he's been, what's going on, but more importantly, what's up with the accent, Mark? He starts bugging out, he's taken it back. The call gets dropped, and now Steven hears a different voice in his head, and it's warning him that he's going to get himself in trouble. His home starts to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he has a freakish experience in the hallways and in his building elevator where the spirit of Khonshu is coming for him, only for it to really be a little old lady who's more scared of him due to the way he's acting. Now when she gets off the elevator, he sees Khonshu standing right behind him. He snaps out of it, only to find himself on a bus now that's taking him to work at the museum. He does catch another glimpse of Khonshu watching him from the street as the bus passes by. And when he gets off that bus, he also notices that Arthur Harrow was on that bus with him. Steven now enters the museum thinking that he'll be safe, but is confronted by Harrow while being surrounded by some of his cult-like followers that have made their way into the museum. Harrow's looking for that scarab, and he mentions that it belongs to the Egyptian boogeyman named Amet, a deity that has the head of an alligator, the torso of a lion, and the backside of a hippo. Harrow ends up explaining that the voices inside Steven's head are maddening, and he grabs Steven's wrist, just like he did to the town folks from earlier before, but this time, the scales on that tattoo are unable to get a read on Steven. They are interrupted when a tour comes through the exhibit that they're in, and Steven makes a break for it, with Harrow telling his followers, let him go. Later that night, Steven is doing inventory at the gift shop, and he hears what sounds like a weeping dog. And when he goes to check it out, he gets attacked by what seems to either be a jackal or a werewolf. Either way, he ends up running away. He hides in a bathroom only to finally interact with Mark Spector persona directly. Mark Spector's persona tells him that if he gives him control, he will be able to help Steven survive. He does, and he suddenly goes into that blackout trance while being engulfed in mummy wrappings, completely taking over him, just as that crazy creature breaks in and attacks him. Now, from the outside, we see the bathroom entrance completely broken, a sink gets thrown out, and the creature gets dragged back in after seemingly looking like he was trying to escape. And for good reason, because now we see a figure and the back of a white cape. That figure is beating down on the creature, and he's not holding back. The creature is out for the count, and we get our first look at the Fist of Khonshu, aka Moon Knight. This episode ends, and the series is off to the races. I feel that this is a fresh start for a new Marvel property that is building its own corner of the status quo MCU. It's a mix of Fight Club meets Indiana Jones with a dash of Venom stirred up in the merry Marvel way. A lot of very cool Easter eggs, like the Gold Street performer who Steven shares a little backstory with, along with the tidbits for Mark's role in everything that's going on. And not just Layla, but the other name that was on the missed call log list. Keep an eye for that, because these are things that comic fans smiled at and hopefully will come into play down the line. Now, the really cool Easter egg that was done by the wonderful team that's bringing this character to the small screen is how they put in a QRC code. Now, for anyone who knows where to look, check out this QRC code because it's giving you access to Moon Knight's first comic book appearance with a digital copy of Werewolf by Night, issue number 32. Like I said, this is a brand new phase for the MCU and a brand new corner. We're connecting characters with mysticism, ancient gods, and hopefully that'll tie into the upcoming Thor movie, the upcoming Blade movie, and of course, the Black Knight character that we saw in the Eternals. Now, again, if you've been to this channel, we want to thank you. Please give a thumbs up, give a thumbs down, let me know how I'm doing here. Also, hit the bell for notifications because we're going to cover this series on a weekly basis, so you want to be up when that episode drops. More importantly, leave a comment. If you're new here, make sure that you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you've been vibing to the sounds that have been going on in the background, that's all provided by my partner in crime, Catt the Legend. His YouTube page, his Spotify page, and the title track can all be found in the description. Before I leave, though, I got to give a huge shout out to To Be Continued With's #1 fan. Christian, thank you for your support. Thank you for letting us know how we're doing here. And more importantly, buddy, keep in mind that this isn't the end. It's simply to be continued with.